What's up everybody, welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you guys with the most up-to-date political, economic and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony, let's jump in. Okay, happy Thursday everybody. This morning, officially recognized daily cases nationwide across China shot past 20,000 for the day before, Wednesday, with no sign of slowdown. Shanghai lockdowns too show no signs of ending as case numbers continue to increase. Indeed, Shanghai has jumped past China's previous all-time high single-day infection number of 13,436 officially recognized cases recorded in Wuhan in February 2020. That was February 12th. We have discussed the lockdowns and outbreaks a lot this week, so let's briefly examine the last day of developments and then move on to other developments, including greater concern from the central government for the economic cost of these outbreaks and in particular these lockdowns in key cities like Shanghai. It was confirmed yesterday, Wednesday, that the National Convention and Exhibition Center, the site of the annual China International Import Expo, is going to be turned into the largest temporary hospital in the country with over 40,000 beds. Zhejiang and Jiangsu, two large and relatively wealthy provinces which hug Shanghai, announced that they will provide 60,000 beds for people too, transferred from Shanghai for quarantine. They've also sent thousands of medical workers to Shanghai to help with efforts there. The question is, though, if infections spread to these neighboring provinces, what resources will the locals there have? Yesterday too, Shanghai's municipal government started a new round of mass testing in the morning to spot infections and the transmission chain. The last round of mass testing was on Sunday. Chinese authorities have reaffirmed their commitment to a zero-tolerance COVID policy, with a spokesperson for the National Health Commission expressing at a press conference on Wednesday, quote, "China will adhere to its dynamic zero-COVID approach as local infections are surging," end quote. Based on the statement, it seems that there are no plans for relaxations anytime soon. Meanwhile, many frustrations from local Shanghainese residents are being expressed online, with some incidents going viral before censors can respond. To give one example, yesterday evening, photos and a video of a pet corgi dog being beaten to death with a stick by a Shanghai healthcare worker flooded Chinese social media. The owner had been taken to quarantine and healthcare workers feared the dog could spread the virus. Based on comments, many Chinese netizens appear not to be too impressed with this explanation. And while we're on this topic, let us also remember that there are some parts of the country, like Changchun in the northeast, that have been under strict lockdown for almost a month now. And as of the filming of this, on top of Shanghai, the country is seeing outbreaks in at least 26 provinces or provincial level regions. Now let us move on to the economic damage of all this, and it is large and growing. Concern for the economic damage that national outbreaks and lockdowns are causing is now being expressed at the highest levels of government. Yesterday, a State Council, China's cabinet executive meeting, expressed that the quote-unquote complexity and uncertainties of the situation have quote-unquote exceeded expectations, and that quote, new downward pressure on the economy has increased, end quote. This may sound like mild language, but for a State Council readout, which typically seeks to paint a fairly rosy picture, this is quite concerning language. The State Council also expressed that Beijing will, quote, deploy monetary policy tools in an appropriate time to more effectively support the development of the real economy, end quote. New independent data from the Caixin China General Services Business Activity Index, also known as the Caixin China Services PMI, now confirms our suspicions that the economy took a real hammering in March, with the index falling to 42 in March from 50.2 the previous month. In a report titled Steep Contraction in Services Follows Latest COVID Wave, analysts with Caixin expressed that the indicator was accompanied by a contraction in manufacturing activity too, as seen in the Caixin China Manufacturing PMI released last Friday, which fell to 48.1 in March from 50.4 in February. The general composite PMI, which includes both manufacturing and services activity, fell to 43.9 last month from 50.1 in February. This is the lowest level since the national lockdowns at the height of the original outbreak back in February 2020. We can also see with the diagram provided by Caixin analysts here that this more independent index shows a more dire situation or a worse situation than official data from the central government appears to show. As such, to quote the State Council again, this slowdown exceeds expectations, and April could be even worse. There is debate now about how much the economy will slow this year due to all of these headwinds. However, we remember discussing earlier in the week that actually the worse the headwinds, the more likely it is that a nervous Beijing turns to credit to pump up the economy. Quote, I think it's too early to lower forecasts. While the recent COVID surge will undoubtedly slow the economy, it has happened early enough in the year that Beijing can make up for it by increasing spending on property and, above all, infrastructure. This will be bad for the Chinese economy over the medium term because it means more wasted investment and, of course, more debt. But it will nonetheless allow Beijing to salvage the growth target. End quote. Lockdown measures could also have a lasting effect on international business confidence for those operating in Shanghai. Quote, Tesla Inc.'s factory shutdown has stretched out to at least 12 days. Much-needed semiconductors are piling up at manufacturers amid a shortage of truck drivers, and bankers are camping in their offices as Shanghai's COVID-19 lockdown disrupts businesses in China's financial hub. End quote. There is also a concern which we touched on yesterday briefly, but which deserves a bit more examination: the risk of food shortages. The three northeastern provinces of Jilin, Liaoning, and Heilongjiang account for more than 20% of China's grain production. We are now learning in recent days that according to official data, as many as 1/3 of farmers in these provinces have insufficient agricultural inputs due to lockdowns across many regions, including in villages, to fight the pandemic. One Beijing-based advisor to the central government speaking to the Financial Times warned bluntly that, quote, China faces food shortages, end quote. According to the media outlet, the advisor, who requested not to be named, expressed, quote, we have to adjust the zero COVID policy for farming. We shouldn't prioritize virus control over everything else. This can't carry on forever, end quote. I'm sure there are at least some people in some of these lockdown cities who very much agree. Hey guys, as always, if you're enjoying the content, don't forget to hit the like button. It's a great way to support the channel. It really does help with a small channel like this. If you're watching for the first time and you're enjoying the content, or better put, you're getting some value from the content, maybe consider subscribing. Hit subscribe and the bell notification and you'll have the most up-to-date analysis when these are released every day. And for those of you guys who want to go the extra mile, my Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee details are in the description below. This is especially helpful and allows the channel to be more sustainable. Thank you everybody for all your support. Okay, for this part I wanted to do something different. I wanted to read two short quotes which I think capture well the nature of the current diplomatic situation between the People's Republic of China and the European Union over the Ukraine war, and the blind spots in PRC diplomacy. These two quotes are from both sides, one EU, one PRC, and are in relation to the recent EU-China Leadership Summit, which we covered over the weekend. The first is from the European Union. Quote, China wanted to set aside our difference on Ukraine. They did not want to talk about Ukraine. They did not want to talk about human rights and other issues, and instead focus on the positive things. The European side made clear that this compartmentalization is not feasible, not acceptable. For us, the war in Ukraine is a defining moment for whether we live in a world governed by rules or by force. That is the question. We condemn the Russian aggression against Ukraine and support this country's sovereignty and democracy, not because we follow the US blindly, as sometimes China suggests, but because it is our own position, our genuine position. We believe in that. End quote. And this is the official Chinese response to these comments. This is the ministry's official English translation, and I've checked it's similar to the original Chinese. Quote, the leaders of China and the EU recently held a very successful meeting. The remarks of the relevant EU official run counter to facts. What the relevant EU official should do is advance the bilateral relations between China and the EU in accordance with the consensus and spirit reached at the China-EU summit, instead of making irresponsible remarks." End quote. And last up, the Evergrande Housing Crisis, or just the property crisis in China. Yesterday we were discussing the trend of local governments undermining central government policy of forcing deleveraging on property developers by easing property sector restrictions. See yesterday's video for more background. We predicted that more and more localities, local government areas would follow suit, and we are already seeing this. Chinese financial outlet Cailianshe reports today that in the last 7 days alone, 6 cities have relaxed property market restrictions, and that removing purchase and sale restrictions to promote activity in the housing sector is now, quote-unquote, becoming mainstream. Yesterday, we discussed a recent report by real estate research institute China Index Academy, which found that more than 60 cities eased controls in the first 3 months of 2022, including lowering mortgage rates, stipulating smaller down payments, and loosening sales restrictions. We remember too that these restrictions were originally put in place due to regulator fears of a bubble economy and systemic financial risk. If this loosening happens en masse, then it means a de facto abandonment of national efforts to deleverage the sector. On China Update, we identified months ago that local governments would be the Achilles heel of this national policy from central regulators, pointing out that local governments have too much of a huge financial incentive to see a growing property sector, primarily because of its connection to the sale of land use rights, a critical source of revenue for many local governments. Now, while we're here, let's touch on one small update from a key developer that we've been following for some time. Kaisa Group Holdings Limited dollar bonds rallied yesterday after the defaulted developer unveiled a strategic tie-up with a state-controlled builder and a major bad debt manager, respectively China Merchants Shikou Industrial Zone Holdings Co. and China Great Wall Asset Management Co. So it's the state sector to the rescue again with Kaisa. While this is good news for those investors holding the bonds, as you can see from the Bloomberg designed graph, bond prices still have a long way to go. Hey guys, I'd love to hear what you thought about some of the updates we covered in today's episode, so throw your comments below. Always love hearing from you. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.